welcome everybody to our webinar tonight, which is on the role EQ plays in creating awareness. So tonight our facilitators are Sophie, Nok and Kiam Suk. So please take it away. We're very excited to hear what you've got to offer this evening.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Nok.
Okay, maybe we can introduce ourselves briefly before we really jump into the seminar. So my name is Nok. I'm from Vietnam, and I took Ben's core training in 2015. And last year, I took the advanced course with Kiam Suk and Sophie, and it's a great pleasure to be with you tonight.
Hi, I'm Kiam Suk. I'm from Bangkok, Thailand. I've been in the class with Ben since 2013, and I have done now the program director for Bangkok, Thailand for 3 years already. And it's just very, very exciting for me today to talk about this topic about the EQ with Nok and Sophie. So looking forward to in a few minutes.
We can't hear you, Sophie. Mm-hmm.
Sophie, you're on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Okay. Right. Sorry about that. Good evening, everybody. And for people in New Zealand, good evening. And for people in Bangkok, Singapore, and KL, a very good afternoon. My name is Sophie Tay. I've joined the rest of the cohorts 47 actually in 2016 to learn about coaching from Ben. And I was then a reluctant coach in the sense that I thought, wow, after the ACC, that's it. But Ben has a way of talking with you and asking you questions and make you go further and further and further. And that's where I am this afternoon. And I'm very excited today that, you know, you can find time together and actually to learn about the role of EQ in building awareness. So shall we start then? Would that be right? Nok and Kiam Suk, you think?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Ready
Great.
to go.
Right. Now let's take a couple of moments to think about how we ourselves, each one of us, think about emotional intelligence. Because when we talk about EQ, EQ is actually the quotient, the measure of emotional intelligence. And when we talk to people about emotional intelligence, likely you will hear a lot of different definitions and the different ways of describing it. Now, actually, EQ is one of the most popular topics in psychology, especially in the last 2 decades. Why? Because at that time, the world is also doing a lot of research about effective leadership and all that. And then it suggests that, you know, cognitive abilities will actually bring us to a certain level in understanding core skills, especially. But in terms of relating to people, a lot of leaders seems to find difficulties in that. And that's how the research on intelligence also, EQ also gotten popular during that time. And in fact, in 83, if I'm, next slide, please, Ben. And the next one. Now, if we look at EQ, actually, it started off from Howard Gardner's in 1983. He did a research on multiple intelligence and he published papers and books on that. And in fact, in his research, he described emotional intelligence in two different areas: intrapersonal intelligence and interpersonal intelligence. when he talk about intrapersonal intelligence, he defined it as the capacity to understand oneself, and also to have an effective working model for ourselves and to use such information effectively in regulating our own life. Now, the next one, he talked about interpersonal intelligence, which is in relations to other people that we come into contact with. And he actually defined it as the capacity to understand the intentions, motivations, and desires of other people. So, in fact, if you dig into the studies and research on emotional intelligence, there are different schools talk about different things about emotional intelligence. For example, one school will actually define emotional intelligence as a trait. Now, if it's a trait, then it is not so helpful for us, meaning you're born with it. Then it almost like our DNA. Now, the other school of emotional intelligence actually talk about, describe it as an ability and also a competency. Now, if I may request for the next slides, thank you. Now, so Daniel Goleman also wrote, in fact, he popularized emotional intelligence with his book, and he defined emotional intelligence as the capacity for recognizing our own feelings and those of others, for motivating ourselves, and for managing emotions well in ourselves and in our relationship. And that's Daniel Goleman's definition. And it was at about that time, the discussion and research about leadership that takes us to the next slides, that link to emotional intelligence. So Daniel Goleman actually defined IQ, and he differentiated it from EQ, right? IQ is very much with our cognitive abilities, and EQ is our emotional quotients. Then when the studies was made by quite a number of researchers, they find that emotional intelligence actually predict the success of a leader in terms of his work, his career, and his relations with his team members. The other one is emotional competencies can actually develop. But the thing is, we need to invest time. It takes time to acquire new competencies. And this is what makes it very helpful for all of us as coaches, that, we can actually strengthen our muscles and our skills in terms of and deepen our emotional intelligence in relation to how we coach and how we relate with people and ourselves as well. Now, if I may bring you to the next slides. Before Daniel Goleman, Mayer and Salovey actually came out with a research in the early 90s on emotional intelligence, and they are the one who says that, they are the one who define emotional intelligence as an ability. And then in 1997, they fine-tuned their research, and they actually develop it into the 4-branch model. And this, what you are seeing here, is the 4-branch models of Mayer and Salovey. Now, the 4-branch, the first one, it talks about perceiving emotions accurately in oneself. It starts from the bottom, perceiving emotions accurately in oneself and others. That means being aware of our own emotions, understanding what it is, and also able to experience the emotions that is happening in that space when we are relating with others as well. And the second one is using emotions to facilitate thinking. The third branch, understanding emotions, emotional language, and the signals conveyed by emotions, which is very interesting in the sense that building a vocabulary and enriching our vocabulary about our emotions. Now, the fourth one is actually managing emotions so as to attain specific goals, which is talking about our motivation. So, And if you put Mayer and Slovy theories and Daniel Goleman's theory together, and they work together very well in the sense that one talks about the abilities, the other one talks about emotional intelligence as a competency. So that will take us to the next slide. If we talk about personal competencies, we're actually talking about self-awareness, gaining a higher level of self-awareness, and also able to regulate our emotions. That is self-regulation. And the third one is self-motivation. When we are faced with challenges, how do we overcome it and able to continually push ourselves forward and to achieve the goals that we want. Now, the other aspect of it, the interpersonal part of it, is the social competencies. It talks about empathy and the social skills. So let's look at each one of them in the next slides, right? When we talk about self-awareness, it is actually knowing what we are feeling and being realistic about our abilities and self-confidence in a grounded way. And in fact, this one brings to mind the other concepts. The beauty about emotional intelligence is that it is very integrative, that you can bring in other practices and help to grow that emotional intelligence. We'll talk more about that later, actually. And it brings to mind what Peter Senge said. Professor Senge talked about, he wrote the book about the 5th discipline, and one of the discipline is about self-mastery. And he says that, to be aware of our current reality and also knowing and deepening our understanding of our personal vision of where we want to go. So that actually, I find that, it relates to self-awareness. We are comfortable to look at our strengths, our weaknesses, and also being realistic about it, and yet not allowing our weaknesses to stop us from achieving what we want. Now, the other one, self-regulation, is about managing our emotions. And some people use the word control. And if I'm not wrong, Daniel Goleman's book talk about control as well. But I personally prefer the word managing our emotions rather than control it. Because control it, it kind of gives me that feeling about, a certain level of suppression. But whereas managing it is truly understanding the intensity and what we are experiencing, and to name the emotions and then help us to get things done. And also, if we are faced with challenges, we are able to overcome it and bounce back and to manage that difficult emotions. The third one, self-motivation, is actually using our values to guide us towards our goals, and also being able to persevere in the face of setbacks and barriers, and taking that initiative to be flexible and motivating ourselves towards our goals. Now, so the next one we are going to touch on is the social competencies, which is in the next slide. Now, this part is actually the interpersonal competencies in terms of empathy, able to sense others' feelings, their needs and concerns, and also understands the different perspective. Some time ago, one of my supervisors spoke to me about the difference between sympathy and empathy. And he said this, he said, the difference between empathy and sympathy is that sympathy, sometimes we get ourselves so muddled up in wanting to help people that we cannot pull ourselves out from the situation. Whereas empathy is being able to empathize what the client is going through, and yet able to step back and really assess the situation. And he gave a wonderful story. I'll just talk about it a little. He said, if your friend call you up and say that, wow, I've fallen into a very deep, dark manhole on the road, and it's so deep and dark, and I have scratched myself and I'm injured. Can you please come and help me? Now, in our eagerness to help our friends, we probably, rush to the site And then the next thing is to jump into the manhole together with a friend. And that's not very helpful, because we did not bring along the ropes, the torchlight, the water, and the dressings for the friend who has ended up in that deep pitch, the dark hole. So the difference between empathy is that if you empathize with your friend, you will then tell your friend that, yeah, okay, and ask him about what exactly he's going through at that point in time. And then at the same time, bring along the ropes, the water, the medication, you know, and the ladders, so that when you reach the site, you can go down and help him and bring him back up again. Now, how many of us have that experience whereby in coaching session, we went round and round with the coachee, with our clients, and then get so deep into the story. And you know, at some point, we look at one another and say that, you know, where we are now, how is it that we can't get out of that story? Yeah. So that brings me to you know, appreciate the difference between empathy and sympathy as well. Now, the last one on social competency is about social skills, how we build relationships, managing conflicts, and also enable cooperation. Now, if we look at the intrapersonal competencies and the interpersonal competencies, it has everything to do with our coaching practice. Why? Because if we look at the ICF competencies, it talks about coaching presence. It talks about how we facilitate that conversation and in creating that space for the client, so that they will feel safe with us and able to speak freely with self-expression. And the other part of it is also about powerful asking, powerful questioning. If in order to do that, unless we are able to strengthen our muscles in emotional intelligence and deepening our skills there and practice there, it will kind of, you know, prevent us from going deeper with our client. And having said that, I would just like to say this. When we talk about emotional quotient, the measures of emotional intelligence, I would like to see it as a continuum, meaning there's no absolute. It can't be that you are at 0 and you are a perfect 10. We are all in the journey or in the process of strengthening that muscles. So I would like to quote what Daniel Goleman says: it is a competencies and it takes time to build. Yeah. So at this point in time, we have covered the definition of emotional intelligence and the different concepts that the researchers bring into the field of emotional intelligence. So I would just like to give the time over to Nok to take us through how will that impact the coaching process. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. So Ben, can you turn on the next slide, please? So I will talk to you about the relation between getting more skillful in our emotional intelligence and our self-awareness for us as coaches. We are going to have a look into what is happening, or what can happen within ourselves as coaches, and what kind of impact that can have on our coaching conversation, and how to navigate that during the process. So next slide, please. So in this slide, we tried to capture the importance of awareness in the ACC process, not only in the awareness conversation, but during the whole conversation at different stages, where we want, our ultimate goal is to help our client to get into that reflective thinking space, and going from telling the story, the situation, help the client to get into, to connect with his focus point and his desired outcome, and finally achieving the transformative shift in his thinking. So these are the 3 cornerstones, I would say, that we are going to focus on today. And we go from one point to the other through this process of reflective thinking. And this is brought during the conversation, thanks to our core competencies, the one that Sophie just mentioned previously. The presence, the active listening, the powerful asking, and the direct communication. And in order to bring this into a lively effectiveness, we really can use our emotional intelligence to support us. And this is how it happens. Next slide, please. So I will take a few moments just to talk about the emotions. So the science says that emotion is a strong feeling that is deriving from one's circumstances, mood, or relationships with others. And it's generally admitted that those emotions can go into 4 main categories. I'm sad, I'm mad, I'm glad, or I'm scared or surprised. And for instance, when we say we're listening to our client telling about his situation, and we can think, oh, his voice is shaking with emotion. So this is the connection between what is happening in his mind, in his brain, and how it is expressing itself in his body. So from the coach point of view, we need to be aware of what is happening. But it's also true that we need to be aware about what is happening inside us. So for that, we can connect to the emotions that are raising in ourselves. And I will go to next slide just to illustrate all the palette, the range of the emotion. In this example, we're going to have a look at happiness and anger, just to highlight that there is a whole range for us to express emotions. And especially for us, coming from Eastern cultures, where expressing emotions is very likely to be suppressed by our education. So me personally, I have difficulties in talking about my emotions and reflecting or mirroring the emotions that I can perceive in my clients. So this vocabulary list can help me to enrich my coaching conversation. For instance, in happiness, I can talk about the client being happy with contentment, delight, exhilaration, up to bliss, to an extreme level. And on the opposite, being angry is not just being angry. It can be frustrating. We can be frustrated. We can feel some resentment, or we can be bitter, or we can feel outraged. So becoming familiar with those nuances of emotions will allow us to be more true to what is happening within us and within our client. This will allow us to become more artful. We are very often talking about the art of coaching. So this is one of the way to become artful, is to enrich, to work on being familiar with this vocabulary. Next slide, please. Actually, more than the emotions, as coaches, we are more interested in the emotional response, not only what we are feeling or the client's feeling, but what it is triggering. So what I mean by emotional response, it's a whole set of things. It's a reaction to a particular feeling that is that goes along with a physiological change that can be manifested or not, and that will trigger a change in our behavior or a change in the actions that we are going to provide. So this is the whole behavioral response. scientists also describe this process in a different way, saying that it is a somatic, meaning something coming from the body, from something physiological. So it's a somatic manifestation, an emotional and a cognitive experience. So this is what is happening within ourselves. The client is telling a story, and our subconscious is making an interpretation of that situation that will trigger some emotion or some feelings. And those feelings and emotion go along with some changes in our body, some signals, like changes in our face. We might be more tensed, we might frown, the heartbeat starts to race, and we change our posture or our voice, the tone, the rhythm, or the peak of the voice will change. Our sensations will change. We will be, I don't know, experience sweaty hands, or we will be hot. So all kind of this kind of body states are what are called somatic changes. And the whole thing will trigger a response. Now, coming back to the emotions and feelings. Actually, what is happening is that those changes are triggered because what the client is telling us reminds us of something that we already experienced in the past. It connects us with a past experience and an experience that we have liked or that we have disliked. So it's a kind of emotion that unconsciously we will try to avoid, or it's a kind of feeling of emotion that will be sought after. And this is the foundation of understanding the dynamics of the emotional response. Next slide, please. So to make it shorter, when the client is telling about his situation, that's very likely trigger a tension within us. A tension that I said relates to an emotion that is sought after or trying to be avoided. So this tension will trigger a response that in our coaching process will translate into a change in an impact on our being and our thinking capacity. So at the bottom line, it will impact our presence, our trust and intimacy, the active listening, our powerful questioning, and our direct communication. So that's why having awareness about those dynamics will help us to manage the response and become more effective in our coaching conversation and be more connected to our client and be more supportive, more effective. Now the responses, there are two types of responses if you think about it. One can be helpful and other one can be very unhelpful. So unhelpful responses, we will talk about this a little bit later with the Pyamsuk, because it also relates to the interpersonal relationship or emotions. And right now, we are going to have a closer look at the unhelpful responses that can happen during the conversation. So next, okay, slides. So in these slides, we see a whole range of emotions that can happen, that can appear during the conversation, from feeling excited or feeling irritated, impatient, anxious, or feeling happy, feeling emotional, or even feeling dull. And all these emotions come from what we call the habits of the mind. As I said previously, the emotions are connected to past experience, something that we already lived in. It's part of our history, and it's a whole process, a whole process that is like automatic, that is appearing whenever we experience things that are closely related to past feelings. So, for instance, those kind of habits of the mind can be attached to performance. It can be self-judgment, belief system, social identity, routine, projection, or emotional triggers. So we are going to have a look at all of them and see how they can impact in a negative way our coaching conversation and what we can do in order to manage those emotional response. So self-judgment, for instance, it's very common for everyone to be wrapped up into our own self-judgment, thinking, well, I'm not supposed to be distracted, or I'm so selfish, I'm a lousy coach. And if we do not keep this in check, we are being caught in our self-judgment, and we lose the connection, we lose the focus on our client. Social identity, it's, for instance, we come into our coaching conversation with a certain image of ourselves, and the coach is also reinforcing this image. We want to appear like knowledgeable and skillful coaches. So what can happen is that if we are not aware of this, we can spend a lot of our energy to protect and reinforce that image. And the result is that we will lose again the connection with our client. We will no longer be available for our client. Projection, very often when this happens, we feel irritated or impatient. What is happening is that client is expressing some kind of difficulties, and we start thinking about these difficulties. We start to judge them. We start to think that our client is really we're getting impatient. Why is this client can't think the right way? Why can't he see the other perspective? In reality, when we are projecting, what is happening is that the difficulties that a client is experiencing is ours. When we do not accept the difficulties of our clients, what is actually happening, or what can actually happen, is that we are projecting on our client. We are not accepting this kind of difficulties of being ours. So we are becoming attached to a vision that is shaped by our own history, by previous experiences. So being self-aware of this and managing it means that we are able to detach from this vision in order to keep a clear view for our client and do not direct the direction towards a way that we are attached to. We'll see how to do that later. Belief systems and emotional triggers. Here, I would like to share a personal experience. Very recently, a client of mine was telling her story about having a fight, or having a discussion with her daughter. And she was talking about her daughter in a very humiliating way. And I started thinking, wait, this is not right. Parenting and respect for people, these are really touching to my core, my deep core value system. So I started to feel very nervous, to be judgmental with this client. I felt restless. I felt about to burst. So evidently, I lost connection with her for a moment. But hopefully, I realized that. I realized that I was becoming attached to my own values, that I was not helping, not supporting my client at all. So I managed to step back. I took a deep breath. I thought, okay, this is what is happening to me, and that's how I managed to dissociate and accept that my client was thinking this way, and it will. And finally, I asked her if she. I told her that I noticed that this was a bit not disturbing, but yeah, disturbing for me. And I was wondering if she wanted to change the focus of a conversation and discuss about her relationship with her daughter. Well, she chose not to focus on that, so we proceeded and moved on. But emotional triggers can be very, very unhelpful. So it's really essential for us coaches to have self-awareness about this, to learn how to self-regulate and to manage this. And finally, the routines. I think that it can happen to all of us, that we just follow the easiest way and we follow a habit. And without noticing it, we are into asking the same line of questioning. We are falling into the same pattern of conversation. So here, we need to reflect on how to engage with each client and conversation with a fresh eye. So this is gaining self-awareness, regulating our routine and managing it. Next slide, please. Again, thank you. You can click again until, and one more. Thank you. One more. Thank you, Ben. So how do we self-regulate and manage our emotions, our own emotions? Actually, it happens at two levels. It has to happen during the conversation to be an effective coach and to keep helping, supporting the client to get more awareness. And it also happens outside of the conversation when we are doing our own journey, our self-development journey. So during the conversation, like during my example, the first thing to do is to recognize what is happening, is to notice the tension that is arising during the conversation. Acknowledge the feelings or the emotions. Pause and reflect. Is this emotion helpful? If it's helpful, just use it, and Pyamsuk will elaborate on this. But if this emotion is unhelpful, just let it go and reconnect to the present moment. Bring back the present. Be there for your client. In our own coaching journey, we need to know ourselves in order to get more self-awareness. We have to be aware of our own beliefs and positions. We need to recognize the triggers. And work means reflecting in order to prevent those emotions from influencing the coaching process. And for this, we will rely on a few techniques that we will present later. And it's really a journey. As Sophie outlined earlier, it's a long process in order for us to get stronger in our emotional intelligence. But it is so, so helpful. It's something that we experience every day as coaches in our coaching conversation, in peer coaching, in advanced training. It's something that we become more and more familiar with. The more we practice, the stronger the muscles are, and the more awareness we get about how helpful this is. So now that we have talked about mind habits and how they can impact on our practice, I would like to invite all of you to reflect on your own practice. So then next slide, please. I would like to invite each of you to reflect on a recent coaching conversation. Take a minute, maybe. A recent coaching conversation where you experienced this, you had to deal with self-emotional response. And once you have this conversation in mind, I would like to invite you to think about what were your thoughts and what were the sensations in your body? What was the impact on the coaching conversation? And if you live this experience more than one time, reflect on what did all your clients share. This is a trigger. And what kind of signals will be helpful indicators for you to know that you need to self-regulate on the spot, in the moment, during the conversation. So I will invite everybody to come back on video and turn them, yeah. And maybe we'll take 2 minutes to think about our personal case, and after that we will invite a couple of participants to share about their experience. Okay, anybody would like to share? Come on.
Hi, Tricia here.
Hi, Tricia. How are
I'll
you?
just share a little bit. Yeah, good, good. I had a recent conversation with an elderly lady, and some topics about the husband, how the husband talks to her, and how you know the husband wouldn't let her sleep on the bed. She had to sleep on the floor for the past 20 years, and I felt my own body, like my blood was boiling. I was like, what kind of nonsense is this? And I was just consumed by the whole thought that this woman needs to get out of this relationship. And it just consumed me. But the interesting thing was, the lady didn't ask to solve this problem. To her, it wasn't a problem. To me, it was a problem. To her, our conversation was about something else. It was about her cancer treatment and stuff like that. But I found myself all consumed because it was just ridiculous that any human being can treat another human being like that. And awareness as a coach, that part of it calmed me down. Like, okay, just listen to what the client wants and not what I feel about the situation. And I think it was awareness was helpful. I had to remind myself that the client didn't ask to be coached in this particular area, and to stay focused on that topic, and not let my own what do you call that, value system, like you said, the belief system and stuff like that, come into
yeah.
And I find that my questions were kind of skewed towards trying to get her that thought into her. I'm planting like empowerment thoughts and all these things into her, even though it wasn't what she was wanting. You get what I mean? That was something for me to reflect on. And now you brought it up, and immediately that example was like, yeah, my blood was boiling.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Tricia, for sharing. Yeah, this is such a true illustration of one of the case I mentioned before about the belief systems and having philosophical position, very strong beliefs and position, something that you're holding on, that in a normal life you would fight for. And if you don't keep this on check, yes, it can lead you to, well, to direct the conversation, as you said, to draw the client's attention to something that you are attached to and not something that she is attached to. Yeah. Great, thanks.
But that being said, I also, after that, I thought about it. Do we, perhaps not for this conversation, do we still bring, because our objective is a heightened awareness, perhaps the client is not aware. I don't know, like, so is it, which part of it do we actually come in and say that, hey, I can smell a problem, at what point do we step in to help or not to help, or to work with them or not to work with them on that topic that we think is an issue?
Yeah, that's a big question. And as I said, you need to trust yourself at one point. Is this helpful? If it's helpful, I'm going to share it. If it's unhelpful, I'm going to keep it for myself and let it go. Now, if you're unsure, you can always, as I did with my clients, I opened to her. I asked her, hey, this is what I'm noticing. This is what I am experiencing, or this is, or you can say it sounds like it's an issue. Would you like to focus your attention on this? And then you leave the choice to the client. Yeah. Anybody else would like to share about a recent coaching conversation when you had to deal with the self-emotion response, I mean? No one.
Hey, hi, no, this is Linda. Hi.
Hi. Hi, Linda.
Yeah, by the way, I'm a very young in this coaching learning. Okay, so what I want to share is that generally, I think my value is that I'm a very energetic person.
Yeah.
So I usually feel very excited when I'm doing a coaching conversation. Yeah, so I look at your chart, right? You put there feeling excited as one of the emotions. So I'm trying to see, is it a good or is it not a good thing? Because because before this session, my thinking is that the excitement can get more engagement and more connectivity. But of course, not to the extent of getting crazy to say, hey, I'm so excited, not to that extent. But it's just, the excitement level. So I want to hear from you. What you think?
Okay, thank you for sharing. Bringing more energy and more commitment into the conversation, as you mentioned, it sounds to me like a helpful thing. Now, what unhelpful response could be in excited brain? Can you think of an example? Okay, maybe I can help you here. I see that sometimes when we are very excited, we are looking for this kind of liveliness within the conversation. We can kind of expect from a client or from the conversation to bring that kind of excitement. And sometimes either the client is just not into that mood or it's not in his personality. So what I see can happen is that we have expectations that are not met, and then we can get bored and lose our focus. That's one of the things that can happen.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, Piam-Suk and Sophie, do you have any other more ideas to elaborate on this case?
Well, personally, I see emotion as, I think some of you may have heard this definition before. When we spell emotion, it starts with an E, right? So E is actually energy. And then the word motion is actually energy in motion. Energy in the motion. So when we go into a coaching session, whatever energy we bring with us, whatever is actually the emotions will send that particular energy across. So my thinking around it is there's no good or bad about the emotions, and emotions are helpful for us because emotion has a language. Every emotion has its intensity, and the emotion has a language of telling you, communicating with you what is needed for that session or what the client wants. So if we are able to listen out to that emotion and what it is saying, then it can be used in a very helpful manner, be it negative emotion or positive emotion. So it is able to, name that energy at that moment. So that's my thoughts about it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Sophie. That's clear. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda.
Thank you. Okay, so we had a look at what is emotional intelligence, thanks to Sophie. And we have discussed a bit about how emotional intelligence can help us coaches to develop our self-awareness and why we need to self-regulate those emotions in order to build up our coaching effectiveness and become more artful. So now the other part of it is that is Pyamsuk who is going to talk about it. And it's about emotional intelligence from an interpersonal point of view. So I'm handing over the floor to Pyamsuk now.
Right, thank you, Nok. What I'm going to talk about now is about the, Sophie mentioned about the interpersonal in the beginning, in the first part, and talk about the empathy and social skills. So now we are going to talk about how can we apply this idea into our coaching conversation and brings out the awareness, the positive awareness to our client. We already know that in the coaching conversation, the engagement of the coach to the client or the connection or bonding during the conversation can create a different level of the awareness and clarity to the client. And makes that the sense of partnership as we have learned in the class, remember that, is raised up with the fundamental of trusting each other. Well, now it's the coach. The coach can use the empathy and the social skill when mirroring back to the client with the high or higher EQ from the coach. That means the coach has fully presence, calm, and settle down, or we can call that the healthy state of mind and heart. I was thinking of the metaphor just like the glass, the big glass of water, the fresh water, the cold fresh water, and is fresh and would brings out the the freshness into the coach self, and also can transfer that energy into the client that he's having the conversation with, and that can bring up the positive energy to the client through the flow, and the coach navigates the process and be able to sense that the client feelings, the client needs and concern, and at the same time understand those underneath the iceberg. What's their feelings? What are their emotion? What are their concern about? Not in the tangible I can say that it's intangible. You can feel it with heart. You cannot feel it with only the brain or thinking or mind, but it's deeper. Like what we are learning about the transformative coaching, we are talking about underneath the iceberg, things like that, right? And also the coach will be mindful of this dissociate during the conversation. The coach is able to reinforce the client's awareness of his or her current and desired state, and can bring and can move forward, invite the client to move forward along the conversation. For example, when there is the shift in his or her thinking, the coach would respond with celebrating clients' progress or moving forward, or something that okay, I have done the shift. You'll see during the conversation, sometimes you see that the energy shift in the client, and that the coach will can observe and feel that and see that, hear that, and then we can express that kind of the emotion that is shifting from the client, and that would make the energy of the client hold on that positive zone, and we can move the client into the positive side, and then create the thinking, the new way of what they are looking at in the new understanding and the new learning, and with the healthy EQ. Could you go to the next slide, please? Okay, and with the healthy EQ, the coach can use the inner helpful emotion to raise the awareness from the client. The expression of the coach's own emotion would create the impact to the client, such as generating trust and perception of genuineness with the client. And that's the partnership sense that we have talking about. Inspire the commitment of the action from the client. And one thing is very important is that the coach then can manage the flow smoothly and effectively. Can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, this is the there's a 4 steps of immediacy of using the helpful emotion to raise awareness from the client. We call it name, claim, tame, and explain. We can relate it into the idea that the coach knows him or herself that what is our, as a coach, what is our thinking, what is our feeling, what is our emotion, and then we can reflect, or we can express our emotion into the conversation, and make the client to have what we are talking about, to have the positive step of the energy. In the first step is the name, the process, that how you feel, and then claim the emotion that are your own within the interaction, and tame is the emotions, experiences, the better make them work for you or not, and then explain the situation, processes, and your experiences to your client as the way of encouraging collective effervescence. Okay, this is just the practice that we can practice during our learning, during our journey of coaching. Could you please the next slide? Okay, And with the higher EQ, with the high EQ of the coach, the client then take away those the shift, or the we can call it emotional shift. A client with the EI, with the higher EI, after have a conversation with the coach, the client with the EI are happier because they have a realistic self-assessment. They are free. They have the comfortability to assess themselves, and they will have the greater self-acceptance. They have trust. They have more trust in themselves. They will create that to explore inside of themselves. It's okay for them. It's not just like I have something harmful in afterward or something. And that brings the creating the awareness of the client. They will calm and settle down, trust and openness. They have courage in self-exploring. They will have the integration of thinking, feeling, and behaving. We as a coach, we invite the client to think. We invite the client to reflect their emotion, and then they can integrate, and then they can integrate the thinking, feeling, and what they are going to do in the next in the action next step. So and in the organization, if I will say that in the coaching in the organization, in the staff level, they would experience the less stress in working. They will work better with the colleagues, customers, and supervisors, perform the better in the team, take more responsibility for their behavior and work product. They have more willing to learn and grow. Okay, next slide, please. In the leadership level, on the supervisor level, they will have the feeling of they manage their job stress more effectively, make better decisions, work more productively, and people at all level in the organization. I mean, that's kind of increasing the relationship skill, handle the authority constructively, and design more productive organizations. Okay, next slide, please. The emotional transformation that the client would have, this is just an example. After they have the right good conversation with the high EQ coach, what they will get, they will have the emotional transformation from, on the left side would be what they have, for example, like laziness, shift. They will shift into the right action. Laziness, for example, like there is a sense of reluctance of doing things, and then they will have the awareness of, oh, okay, this is the right thing to do. Or the example of the envy. Envy is that the sense that always have the compare to others, and brings that the negative things into ourselves. And then they will shift the envy into balance, that okay, the sense of acceptance, this is what I am, and then I don't have to compare me with others, and then we can live our life or do things or working without any worry about. Or fear into courage, fear of doing things, and then we can the client can have the sense of, okay, this is fear, but okay, I will do it anyway. This is courage, and this is can move their life going on. Okay, this is just an example of the emotional transformation that will happen in the coaching conversation with the high EQ. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, now at this moment, I would like to invite everyone here to think about the first one: possess the skill required to have a coaching presence with the client. The second, remain fully conscious and connected with my client. And number three, foster a safe and supportive coaching environment. And four, remain truly authentic with my client. I would like to open the space for everyone here to share or have some comments about this. Supportive or helpful, yes.
Lisa Burnt here from New Zealand. Hi, everybody. Just while you're speaking, I was thinking about the shift from the knowing of the terminology and the knowledge about emotional intelligence in this context and how you work with a client, and to get it actually rooted in your practice requires deep self-reflection. So it's got to be shifted from a analytical thinking process to a sort of heart-based knowing process before it naturally happens between you and the client to develop the connection. So yeah, just interesting how that process works for people. It's not easy to make that shift from, okay, I know what I need to do, to actually I just do it because that's what's in my heart anyway. And so that's where I guess the self-practice of self-awareness and whatever spiritual or emotional learning practice people go through is the way to connect it at a deep knowing and remove it from the sort of, I know some steps I need to work through. Yeah, so just a comment really.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And that's all from the practicing or experience in the coaching session. I mean, even conversation. Every time of the sessions, of the conversation, we always learn something, and we can observe ourselves about our thinking, about our feelings, about our emotion, reflection, and after the conversation, every time that I finish the conversation, I come back, and then I was thinking that what happened in that conversation that I've been through? What was my emotion towards that story of the clients? What was my thinking? And then we learn something every time. And then, like Nok said, that we are building our muscle, time to time, and then through our practice, through our observation, through our learning in every single coaching conversation with the clients, and that is our benefit to ourselves as a coach, and absolutely it is the benefit to our client too. Thank you. Anyone else would like to share?
Hi, this is Angie from the Singapore cohort.
Hi, Angie.
Hello. So just something to share with what I do to get myself in the right frame of mind before I go into a coaching conversation is that I just take a few minutes before the session starts to set an intention myself for the session. What outcome do I want, which inevitably will be to serve the client at the highest ability. And it helps to shake off any thoughts and feelings that I may have that might impact the session. It helps to push those away and shake them off. I also find it really helpful not only to settle myself into the session, but also to take the clients through a little mini process at the beginning so that they also feel that they're fully arrived at the session. Obviously, I want them to explore their subconscious and talk about their thoughts and feelings. but I want them to focus on the topics that really matter to them the most, rather than deviating on everything. So I find that really useful with my sessions. And in setting that foundation at the very beginning, I find it a lot easier to keep myself there, because really my job then is just to listen and to observe, and the rest then just becomes obvious as to where it needs to go and where I need to navigate the conversation.
Yes, thank you, Angie. Absolutely. So I like I mentioned in the beginning that I use the metaphor of we as a coach, just like the big glass of water that contain the cold, fresh water, and then, for example, like the client, our client has the emotional, something like a dark, emotional, just like a glass of water with an ink in that, and the water is black, and then we pour our fresh cold water into that client's glass. Then our fresh fresh cold water will then make that client's glasses more fresh, and change the color from the black to gray and then clear afterward. It depends on how our glass is cold and fresh enough. I mean, if the bigger our glass, the colder our glass, the fresher our glasses of water, and then we can make that the client's glass will be fresh and cold like the coach, like ours. So this is very beautiful.
Well, thank you, Pyang-soo. Well,
Thank you.
I think some of our friends here are from New Zealand, and I would just want to take this opportunity to just open up to up the game, because we are aware that in the coming in May we are starting. We're going to offer our advanced training, and I'm going to rename the name. I'm going to rename the advanced training to call it Revealing the Art of Mastery Coaching. And I think one of the beautiful piece here about the transformative shift that we're offering to our clients lies very heavily at the core of awareness. And we say that in our public collateral, we say that we are enabling a powerful shift through the science of EQ. Well, what we are looking at is self-awareness. Now, if you can imagine with me, and this is going to be in my new book, in one of the chapters, it called Perspective Matters. And I think it is not, it comes to a point to me that it dawned on to me so much that there are two little bubbles, and these two bubbles is about doing and being. And if you can see these two bubbles, it is not dichotomized. They don't coexist independently. There is a unique space that we call the external world and the internal world. Now, if we could just see that the external world is a world of doing, and the internal world is a world of being, and we are right in between here. We are trying to merge, we are trying to merge, we are trying to make sense. We are caught in the hyper complexity of the doing and the being, and there is a space in between here. What is this space in between here? The space in between here is not called awareness. Awareness is about a way that helps you to achieve something. And what is it that we want to achieve? What we want to achieve through awareness is called integrity. Think about it. Integrity. And if we are able to bring the external world of doing and the inner world of doing, inner world of knowing, and hold the space together in a perfect congruency, that's where we are able to develop integrity. When people have high integrity, we're not talking about integrity in the sense of moral value. We're talking about integrity as being true to your authentic self. If I can hold true to my authentic self, then the world around me is not going to be unstable. Now, the world around us is in a hyper-complex globalization. If you do hear the first seminar that we did on 1st of February, we talk about the impact of the external world to humanity. And one of the things that I introduced is a hyper-complex society. Because of the hyper-complex society that is around us, things is constantly in chaos. But humanity is never designed to live in chaoticness. Humanity is to live in stillness, in cohesiveness with things between the mind and the soul. And what awareness brings about is to bring that stillness between the mind and the soul, the two meeting point, where we are able to uphold the integrity. Think about that. Integrity. What we truly offers to our clients in return is integrity. How they're going to uphold what really matters most to them, and allowing them to use that wisdom to decide their own choice of thinking, doing, and feeling in moving forward. So when they achieve in a state of in the moment, the integrity, the space of time now is going to change, because how they're going to move forward is going to depend on something fundamental, much more powerful. That is my true core value or my true essence. Okay, and awareness is just a way of us getting connected to. That's all. Connected to what? That's a bigger thing. You know, I mean, connected to what? Connected to your mind and your soul, the way of doing and the way of being. It's not about choosing either we want to do or we want to be or we want to be or we want to do. You can't choose. There is no choosing. It's not about you being a leader or being a manager. You have to be both a leader who manages and a manager who leads. It's about the two in one. It's not about choosing either or. It's about that space where the two coincide together. What is that called? It's called integrity. When we're able to act upon and live our life with integrity, true to our own self, that's where you feel less conflict. Where there is total stillness, perfect peace that transcends all understanding. When that state of being happens, how are you going to look in the future, or how are you going to move in this moment of time is going to be very different. And that's where the reactivity, receptivity bubbles comes in. It's all about the moment of time at this current moment. What is it that's calling your attention? What is it that is taking away your attention? And that's the beauty of how we can bring this art into a world to help people to achieve that perfect stillness, that perfect understanding. To understand that things around us are constantly in chaos and constant change, but there is a point where we can be still. And it is at that moment of stillness that people begins to see things with a much wider, purposeful, and meaningful perspective. So perspective does matter, isn't it? And I think the beauty of it is ready to use all the science that is available. You call it EQ, you call it EI, or whatever that is. These are just doors that can be opened, that we can use to better understand human psychology and use that human's understanding to help people to make sense of their own doing and being. so that in moving forward, we can be very informed rather than just simply a response. You know, we are more than a single self organism, right? Give some sugar and you respond in this way, put some salt and you just run away. No. We are transcend beyond that response dominance approach. There is a wisdom where we can assess. There is a moment in time where we can see through things. And at the act of the will, make a difference in the choice that we're going to make. And that's where every coaching conversation is a powerful moment, where we can just gain that science to look deep into that space between the soul and the soul and the mind, the merging of the two together. Okay, where the logic and reasons integrates with the purpose and the values. And when we put all together, that's where we can truly be a much more powerful being. So I think with that in mind, thank you so very much for Nok, for Sophie, and for Byung-Sut for walking through us a powerful content-based knowledge, grounding us with a more specific science and sharing their practical experience. So we're going to just open up just a couple of moments, just a few minutes for you to open up, to ask any questions to three of our panelists to draw the best out from them. So who would like to just take this time to pose questions? Fruitful thoughts, reflections, insights, takeaway. Aha moments, anything. You don't know what you know until you talk about what you know. That's the fundamental principle, the expression, You need to express. If not, there's no story. No story means...
Ben, I'll say something. Can't leave you hanging like that. I love your image of the external and the internal and how the coaching works between the two. That's a really powerful way of seeing that. Thank you.
It's a new way of looking at your clients when they're expressing their stories, that it's not just a topic, it's not just a content, it's not just an issue, but the story of a being in an environment with all that webs that is being connected, and be able to see using that clean lens again. You know what I mean? A new lens of looking at our clients, telling us their stories in the conversation. So that's why coaching conversation is a special conversation. It is about human beings telling us their stories. But don't trust me, even CEOs, tell stories. Some are unreal stories. You just have to burst the bubble. That's not real. That's not what you're saying. That's not really what you meant. What you actually say is that you're hurt. You're feeling insecure, isn't it? And that's where the real story comes out. Yeah, people tell
Actually,
stories.
I do have another question. I think in one of the sections about the different emotions, there was happy emotions and angry emotions. And how about fear? I mean, fear is obviously, the range of fear emotions is a pretty key one.
Yes. There were 4 of them, and just in this example, we just showed 2 of them.
Right. Yeah.
But absolutely, you're right. Yeah. There is fear.
Thank you.
These are all beautiful gateways for us to assess, to tell us what is it that is holding them, what is it that is pushing them, what is it that is pulling them, as a way for us to go beyond the facts, to open up and see the stories, and through the stories see meanings and understandings, and bring that up for the client's own knowing, and examining it in the light of a structured manner of their goals, and ask them to make sense. How does that inform you of any truth that could have perhaps being covered up because of your rush, because of you just not being aware, have the ability to connect to it? So stories are just a way that God, in His creativity, has allowed us to open up and see the greater truth in life. So these are all doors, gateways for us to access. Beautiful, thank you. And there was a question that's popping up. Who's that? Just now there's someone who responded. Okay, now come on, guys. Any questions? Any thought? 3 more minutes before we're going to let you guys go.
Excuse me, Ben, I've got a question.
Okay, Sarah, go ahead, Sarah.
Is that all right? Yeah, one thing that I've noticed in my coaching session is that I connect with the client in a very, I'm not sure, I would say it a different way. I feel that if my client is upset, I would portray the image like if the client is going through, fire and water or I would say different seasons like autumn, spring. I will
Yeah.
connect it with the joy and fear. So I connect with the client, but then, sometimes when I feel that I'm getting affected by the feelings and emotions, I usually remind myself that I'm a coach,
Yeah.
and so I need to have a protective gear on. Like, for example, if it's like there's an emotion of being, the coldness, so I would feel that, look, I'm a coach, I'm wearing the warm clothes, and I have to offer the warmth to my client as well. And I normally think about the objective, like where the conversation is going. What is the main purpose of this conversation? We have to offer that comfort to the client, as you talked about the integrity in a bigger way, I would say like in a bigger picture, like a total combination of mind and soul. So it's quite complicated for me sometimes to just keep away from the emotions. I try my best. Probably it's just the start of my coaching career, and I'm struggling over there. But then I feel that the way you have explained it to us, what is the purpose of that conversation? It's just not a story. Like, even if it's a story, it's going somewhere, it's ending somewhere, and it should end at integrity.
Yes.
That's where the coaching conversation should end. And we as coaches, I feel that we've got great responsibility on our shoulders.
Precisely.
So,
I think, Sarah, you highlighted a very powerful point, is that at the end of the day, the conversation needs to end with the client feeling whole and complete. In wholeness, in completeness, in fullness. While we know that the situation is will not or may not be resolved or complete, but the client in their relationship to how they view or how they respond towards their situation should be in wholeness and completeness and in fullness, or at least in an integrity, with the integrity to know that I'm in peace or I'm at peace right now with myself and with the situation, as this is how I see and this is what is unveiled to me. Okay, and that should be the point where we end the conversations. Sometimes, we might not be able to bring into that, but at least we know that that's the journey. That's the journey that we as the coaches is going to be together with the clients for the next series of conversations, is to come to a point where they can fully embrace and accept. And there's a very beautiful quotation that I just came, I thought is a very, very appropriate to use it as a concluding thought for the discussion about awareness and the impact it has, not so much on the coaching, but who we are as a coach and what we do as a profession in this whole business of creating a special conversation. it started off, it's a poem. Okay, I mean, this is a resolution that I put in 2017 to read more poetry. So I come across a very nice poet. He says here, it's all about being a human being. Okay, so in this little poems that I've collected, I just happened to come across. He says, to journey without being changed is to be a nomad. To change without journeying is to be a chameleon. The lizard that change colors. To journey and be transformed by the journey is to be a pilgrims. Those who are working on the journey of seeking truth and insights. Great thought. Think about that. Huh? To journey without being changed is to be a nomad. And to change without journeying is to be a chameleon, just constantly changing for the sake of changing. And to journey and be transformed by the journey is to be a pilgrim. Someone in a journey, in a quest to seek for meaning and deeper understanding. And think about all the clients that comes to coaching conversation. What is it that in the heart of heart they are seeking? And I think with all my experience, with all that in store, I'm convinced clarity in understanding. They are seeking for clarity in understanding, because human beings are fundamentally made to make sense of things around us. We are constantly in that space of connecting and making sense of things around us. And if we take that away from us fundamentally, from us as human beings, then we cease to exist as a human being. Will be called human doing. So think about that. All your clients, all shapes and sizes, where they're coming from, CEOs or people just normal people, they all come to the special conversation with just one purpose, that is to seek understanding, to seek clarity in their understanding. What really matters most to them. So with that is an encouragement to all of us as a professional coach, that our job is a noble calling, that we are here to inspire positive change, and that we are here to make a difference one conversation at a time. Never underestimate the power of one conversation. And with that, thank you so very much for joining us tonight. And I hope to be able to see you guys again at a very ungodly time. We do runs end of the month in February. Please do join us if possible, because in this end of February, Sim Hock Mei, one of our program director in Singapore, he's talking about the impact of triple loop learning in the coaching process. And unfortunately, we are not able to. He's not available to do this program in the 3 p.m. afternoon time, which is 8 p.m. New Zealand time. So I would love to be able to have you guys here live to interact with him. If not, otherwise we will have to be contented with just listening to the recording, which, trust me, you will not sit through the whole entire conversation if you're going to listen to the recorded time. So just do join us if your time permit, end of this month at 8 p.m. Singapore time. So with that, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Good
Thanks.
night.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
Bye.